Hello, beloved church family of the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Paul Persuti, and I'll be your host tonight. And I welcome you to our midweek oasis, our Wednesday night service. As you'll be able to experience tonight, our Wednesday night oasis is a place where we come together as a community to be spiritually refreshed between Sundays. Most Wednesday night services build upon the theme of the previous Sunday, sharing in a satsang style, expressing science of mind principles and practices with the intention that these gatherings be informal, intimate, and rich. Oops, that's the old one. Informal, intimate, and interactively rich. How's that sound? Our annual theme for 2024 is a grand rising, and our monthly theme for April is giant gentleness. Last Sunday, Aria Shell introduced ideas inspired by the talk title of Taking It to the Street. And tonight, our speaker will continue the exploration of the same topic. So as we gather tonight, I really want to welcome you, each and every one of you that join us. When Reverend Sunshine first came to us, she put out this invitation that really spoke to me. And she says, please, please come to the center well. And to do so, she shared 6 C's for us to consider and incorporate. So I've responded to that invitation and I practice these. I ask you to practice them with me. She asked us to practice compassion, to come with a heart of love and tenderness, to come with communication, ready to exchange openly, to come in friendship and family, which she calls camaraderie, come in harmony and ready to share, which is communion. Then there's collaboration, come in partnership and cooperation. And finally, and the most importantly, she says, come with consciousness, come in spiritual awareness and truth. So as we move into the program tonight, these 6 C's are the premise of sharing a wonderful evening with you tonight. If you're new to our community, please visit our homepage, www.oaklandcsl.org. Run around it, explore it, click on things, see how it works. And while you're there, click on the I'm New icon on the homepage and look at the lower left-hand corner of the next page that comes up and to submit your email address. Once you put your email address in there, you'll begin receiving the Village News newsletter once a week in your email. It has all the information on what is happening at the center in the coming weeks. So before we get started, please mute your own audio microphone. You can leave on your camera. When you mute your audio microphone, it will improve the quality of our recording and tonight's transmission. And please stay tuned through the end of our service to receive special and important announcements that I'll be presenting. So our speaker tonight is a wonderful, wonderful person. I get to work with her on Sundays. She takes care of things in the front of the house. As you come in, you've probably seen her, and we're glad that she's here tonight. And she's going to take the theme from Sunday, kind of twist it up a little bit. And she's calling it Taking It to the Trees, as she informs us that God is a pollinator. Her name is Gabriella Condie, and she's a nature lover, an educator, an energy healer, a hiker, a swimmer, a collage artist, a supportive daughter, and a doting aunt. She is also part of the Loving Stewards of Mother Earth group at Oakland Center and a lover of environmental sustainability. As we do with every organized event at the center, we open with prayer. Gabriella, will you be doing the honors this evening?
Alice Knudsen will be giving our opening. So without further ado, I hand the mic to Alice.
Okay, so everyone just take a nice deep breath in and just allow yourself to go within. Go within into that sacred place inside where the power and the presence of God resides. Just knowing with each deep breath, with each breath in, your lungs, your entire being is filled with the light and the love of God. For we are all one. There is only one life, and that life is God's life. Perfect, whole, and complete. And that life is my life right here and right now. I know with absolute certainty that God is everywhere present. And it is this magnificent presence of love and light that breathes you and me, that brings us into existence, that blesses us constantly, that fills our hearts with joy and grace and love. And it is from this place that I am so certain that God is within me and I am one with God and God is one with me. There is never any separation. And as I know this to be true for myself, I know it to be true for everyone here and everyone not here, for we are all one. And so I bless this sacred time together where we come every Wednesday night to share our wisdom and to open our hearts and to be in the presence of the one love and light. And I bless Gabriella tonight as she brings her wisdom and her joy and all that she has to offer us. And I know it will be a rich night, that everything will go perfectly. The AV team is here to support us. Gabriella is ready and spirit is beating its drum with joy for what is to take place. And so please join me in saying, and so it is. Blessed be.
So it is. Yeah.
So it is.
Thank you, Alice. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. And thank you for all your supportive words on Sunday. I felt very encouraged by you all. So I'm Gabriella, and the title of my talk is God is a Pollinator. This week, we celebrate Earth Day, a time to remember our connection with Mother Nature and our dependency on her every day. It's a time to help her and a time to mourn her wounds and a time to recommit to reharmonizing our relationship with her. And to remember that she is always inviting us to heal in her presence. Earth Day is a great time to marvel at Mother Nature and the natural phenomena that keeps life going on this planet. Pollination is one such phenomenon. Pollination is the way the plant kingdom reproduces its seed. So this would include trees also. Pollinators are really outside of the plant kingdom. They include bees, beetles, hummingbirds, butterflies, fireflies, wasps, bats, wind, and even water. An example of pollination goes like this. A bee goes to a flower to get nectar or food. And while it's there, it's going to rub up against the pollen in the flower. Specifically, it's probably going to rub up against the anther, which is the male part of a flower. Then it goes to the next flower, and it has pollen all over its body. And while it's getting nectar from that next flower, likely that pollen will fall off onto that flower, onto the female part, which is called the stigma. And voila, the flower has what it needs for fertilization to happen and seed production. You could say that reproductive sex in the plant kingdom is incidental or coincidental. Both the pollinator's need for food has co-evolved with the plant kingdom's life cycle needs. This is coevolution, this is interdependence, this is ecology. We're all related through our relationships. And for a visual, we can look to the dandelion poster behind me. This is a dandelion flower, and the anthers are these long guys right here, and they have pollen on the edges. And a pollinator can come and do its thing and take off and then land on another dandelion. And believe it or not, the female part of the flower is up here. So it can do that pollen transfer thing. And the interesting thing about dandelions is that I've been talking about cross-pollination, so moving around, but dandelions can also do self-pollination. So if that bee doesn't come, it can sort of dry out these edges, and the pollen will kind of fall, move around with the wind. And then the interesting thing about dandelions is after it does that, it closes up, and then it reopens because it's been fertilized, and then it reopens again into the white blossom thing, and then you get this amazing image. And and then either through wind or the human breath making a wish, the seed will go out into the world and plant more dandelions. So I've been talking about the bee, and you might not know that not all bees produce honey. The honeybee is special. The US is home to 4,000 native bee species, and California has 1,600 native bee species. None of these guys have hives or work with queens. They're more solitary and they make nests in the ground and things like that. The honeybee was brought here from Europe. It's not from the United States, because cultures all over the world have domesticated the honeybee. The honeybee is a highly social organism, and humans have enjoyed the fruits of their hard labor for millennia. We humans are also highly social. And in addition to loving honey and the taste of sweetness, religions and various cultures all over the world have looked to the lifestyle of the honeybee hive culture as exemplary and full of spiritual inspiration. So the social structure of a honeybee hive culture goes like this. It can be up to 40 or 50,000 bees, 20 to 40. Only 10% of that community is male, maybe 15. The rest are all female, obviously, and there's one queen who's the mother of everybody. The only purpose of a male bee is to mate with a queen from another hive to promote genetic diversity. That's always there. And he actually dies if he gets to mate with that queen right after, because she's taken the sperm and he loses too much of his body to survive. But he's served his purpose. For the females, they have 4 stages of life. The first stage, once they've hatched out of their eggs, they sort of stay with the nursery. Believe it or not, in the beehive, there's like a nursery for the eggs and larvae. And in that state, the younger youth in that early stage, they might have jobs like cleaning bee cells or feeding the eggs and the larvae. Then later on, they can graduate into the second stage, which they get jobs like constructing the comb and capping honey cells with propolis, which is a mixture of wax and pollen. They use propolis kind of like we humans use caulk to like seal things, or you could say glue, but I think of caulk, we could caulk. Maybe I just like saying the word caulk. And in that stage, they can also become nectar receivers. So there's the foraging bees, and they're the 4th stage, and they come back from all the flowers and they got to hand the loot to somebody. And those young adults can be the nectar receivers. Then in the 3rd stage of a female bee's life, the bee moves closer to the edge of the entrance of the hive. And their jobs can include removing dead bodies from the hive, because they're all about efficiency, and they also can guard the hive. So if a bee guarding sees a potential threat, maybe the beekeeper disturbs something, or animals get curious about beehives too, they will sting, and that sting is for protection of the community, because a honeybee does die after it stings. Again, too much of its body's lost and it dies. It's kind of a martyrdom situation. Okay, and then in the fourth stage, they get to become a foraging bee and they get to go out to all the flowers and bring back nectar, pollen, and water. And one really remarkable aspect of foraging bees is that they communicate to each other through dance. And they're trying to communicate to each other where the good nectar is. Like if there's a field of flowers, you might as well tell all your sisters, you know, where to go, right? So, and the way this works, and I highly recommend watching videos on YouTube, this blew my mind. A bee will do what they call a waggle dance, and she will shake her rump really fast. It's like really clear she's dancing. And so they get it, like, okay, you're communicating something with us. And they do it with a lot of exactitude because it's all based on where the sun is. And of course, they know where the sun is because they're bees. And if so, for example, if this was the hive, and up here is the sun, and the sun moves, you know, east to west, and it moves about every 4 minutes, they say, and the bees know that, and they adjust. Oh my gosh. So anyways, so the bee, so okay, so let's say that it's noon and the sun's right here, right? And the bee, let's say the nectar's that way. The bee will dance that way. She will, you know, waggle or shake her thing that way. And if it's in a degree, if it's 90 degrees from the sun, she'll go like that. If it's 45 degrees, she'll dance, she'll head in a 45-degree angle. And if it's over here, if it's on this side of the sun, she'll do it over here. So she can communicate the angle degree of the relationship between the nectar source and the sun. And the amount of times she makes this rotation, I guess she makes a figure 8. The amount of times she does that, it correlates to the distance. So she can communicate the distance and direction through dancing. That blew my mind. And so basically in the honeybee hive, everything a honeybee does is in service to the well-being of the community. You see this with the stinger, the female protecting the hive and then dying. The male helping procure the continuation of the community through his sperm and then dying. They don't even get to preserve themselves. It's all about preserving the community. And then there's honey. And they make honey, they make about 2 to 3 times more than they need. They're basically storing up for the winter when the blooms are not out. And humans have enjoyed honey as a delicacy for many centuries. They even found honey in King Tut's tomb in Egypt that was 3,000 years old, and the honey was still good. It's an amazing preservative. Yes, preserving the community. I'm using the word preserve too. It's an amazing preservative that supposedly that honey was still sweet. It doesn't age. It has a lot of antimicrobial properties in it. And they thought that was old. They thought the King Tut thing was old. But then there was an archaeological tomb site in the Republic of Georgia. So that's south of Russia, north of Turkey. And in this archaeological tomb site, they were looking at this culture that lived in 4300 BC. So that's 5,500 years ago. And they found honey that had berries in it. And they say that the berries still smelled sweet with musky undertones. 5,000-year-old berries that are preserved in honey. Honey's taste and its medicinal properties are part of a sacred designation that is so common to a number of cultures. Honeybees are looked at possessing divine qualities. We can see this in Islam. In the Quran, the spiritual scriptures of Islam, a whole chapter is dedicated to the honeybee. And this, around 1700 years ago, the Quran was revealed through the Prophet Muhammad. And a short translation of the bee chapter goes like this. And your Lord inspired the bee, saying, take you habitations in the mountains and in the trees and in what they erect. Then eat of all fruits and follow your ways of your Lord, made easy for you. There comes forth from their bellies a drink of varying color, wherein is healing for men. Verily, and this indeed a sign is for people who think. An analysis of this section said it really well. I'm just going to quote it. The Quran suggests that mindful contemplation of the bee can offer lessons to humans around hard work, living communally with cooperation, unity, and serving the collective good, along with living harmoniously with nature. It goes on to say, the bee embodies transcendent purpose and connection to the miraculous intelligence in creation, despite external humbleness. Another interesting part of this bee chapter in the Quran is that the feminine gender pronouns are used. And many people think, well, how would the Prophet Muhammad know that the whole bee culture is matriarchal and it's very female? Because they didn't have microscopes back then, and little of that microscopic detail was known. And so it just further supports the idea that divine inspiration was coming through him. And interestingly enough, Aristotle in Greece didn't refer to the bee through the masculine, so maybe the Greeks had it wrong. Anyways, mead is a term used for honey wine, or it can also be a non-alcoholic honey drink. And the Greeks used that as medicine. A lot of medicines have been used with honey. Honey can be used on burns, and it helps generate new skin tissue, so that helps complete wound healing. In the 5th century in England, offering mead to newlyweds became popular, like that tradition of the honey. That's where we get the honey that you gave a couple a moon's worth of mead, right? Because it's symbolized fertility and sweetness. And that became really popular to the point where the demand for beeswax candles in the churches contributed to the decline of mead making. So that was just a little interesting bee product market history I was reading. I know of an Episcopalian church in Oakland that still only uses beeswax candles in their Sunday service. And then in India, we see the bee in Hinduism a lot. In the god of love, desire, pleasure, and beauty, Kamadeva, or Kama for short. You see artistic depictions of him, and there's always a group of buzzing bees with him. And honey also shows up in Hindu scriptures. The analogy of honey and the sweetness of spiritual experiences is deeply rooted in Hindu scriptures and cultural traditions. The symbol of honey shows up as purity of thought, joy, and pleasure, and the importance of maintaining purity in your thought, word, and deed is a theme in Hindu scriptures. It's also symbolic to presenting the sweetest and purest aspects of oneself to the divine. And then we see in West Africa from the Yoruba traditions coming out of Nigeria and Benin, and which are all over the African diaspora. There is the goddess Oshun, and she is the goddess of femininity, fertility, beauty, and love. And she's associated with the sweet water of the earth, so creeks and rivers, not the ocean. And she's associated with colors yellow and gold, and honey is something associated with her. So if folks were doing a ritual inviting the energy of Oshun, they might have a honey offering on the altar or something. And then in Judaism, honey shows up at Rosh Hashanah, a time of reflection. Folks eat apples and honey to celebrate the good and sweet new year. Apples symbolize the tangible good, while honey represents the sweetness called in. In rituals like these I've mentioned, honey represents a way of channeling the infinite spiritual energies so they can be preserved and stick around. The sweetness that is being invited in by ritual, by prayer, by altars. invites these spiritual energies to descend to the lower sphere where we are, as opposed to dissipating on a lofty plane. In Utah, the beehive is the Utah state symbol, and Utah is where the Mormon pioneers settled and established their community in the mid-late 1800s. In Mormonism, the symbol of the beehive celebrates harmonious cooperation and being industrious, enjoying the fruits of teamwork labor and working for the commons. I grew up in a Mormon community in Oakland, and I can confirm that these values are indeed part of the culture. One example of this is that every congregation has people assigned to check on other people. They call it like the home teachers and the visiting teachers. You're not always teaching something. Your job is to check on that person like once a month and just see how they're doing. And if they have a need, let's say there's a medical need or something, then they can be tended to. But whether it's a ride to the doctor or dinner brought in, that stuff is communicated, and the communication lines are very organized. I used to think, and I was talking to my cousin about this over the weekend, that when you have a group of people praying together, and let's say you're praying for someone's healing, someone's comfort, someone needs a job or something like that, the prayer might likely will be answered through the same community. I think spirit's efficient. And I think that happens. And my cousin had the same thought. And I think this just speaks to the community mindedness that we grew up with. I was looking at Utah's policies around, or public services around helping the unsheltered population, because when you go to Utah, you don't see a lot of unsheltered folks. And I've heard that they're really good in taking care of them. They have a housing first model in addressing their unsheltered population, and they've been successful and creative in pulling resources together to make sure that folks in that need are tended to. And I'm not for the marriage of church and state, but if you're doing a good job, if your spiritual values are coming from a religious place, and you know how to take care of your unsheltered population, and you've done it with success, I applaud you. And I hope that folks look to that state for inspiration and ideas, because California could use some help. And last but not least, oneness. Honey can be likened to oneness. There are no two honeys, there's only honey. Oneness is not only something we can feel when we're meditating together, we're workshopping together, we're singing together. It's also something we can feel when we're working together. So in conclusion, I say one honey, one people, one love. And the questions I have to open it up here are, did you get to connect with nature this week? Do you have any thoughts on community that you'd like to share? Is there a sweet spiritual experience that came to mind that you'd like to share? Or anything else? I invite you all. Please speak.
Gabriella, can you say it again? I'll put it in the chat for you. Did you get to connect with nature?
Did you get to connect with nature this week? Do you have any thoughts on community that you'd like to share? Is there a certain sweetness to a recent spiritual experience you've had? Or anything else you'd like to share? I'd love to hear it.
Well, first of all, the first thing I want to share is thank you, Gabriella. You've, and I believe if everybody just takes a moment and show our appreciation and go into gallery view, we can see all the claps and snaps and yahoos and all of that. Thank you, Gabriella. I think we have been well informed of how the bees take it to the street, huh? those poor boy bees, so I have a little sympathy for them. But as usual, if you have an answer to any of the questions that she poses, do you have any thoughts on community or connecting with nature this week or a certain sweetness to a spiritual experience you've recently had? We ask that you raise your hand like this or use the raise hand icon like that so we can recognize you. Anybody have anything to share, respond to, ask a question of Gabriella? Margot, I see your hand. She's looking, there's
Not
the
the right one.
bird.
Well, I could respond to the questions, but I would just love, I would just like to say to you, beautiful Gabriella, that that phrase, infinite spiritual energies, and using the bumblebee, using the bee, not the bumblebee, using the bee for a metaphor, because metaphors are one of the most practical, deep avenues for spiritual growth. So I think you really gave us a pathway to give it meaning in our own lives. And then I also, thought about how much we know about life, how much we know about nature. You can look it up. It's been true. What you gave us is true for forever. Just like electricity, it's always been there. We never didn't know how to put it into some practical use. And it gives me hope that somebody that makes the inquiry like you, that we do really have the knowledge to take care of this planet. We have the one mind is open. We just need to receive and be activated. So I just bless you. And I hope in a prayer, I get to do a prayer for you tonight for this meeting. I already feel inspired in my heart that you are so connected to nature that it activates my own love for it. So I just say thank you for the metaphor. Thank you for the beautiful words and the story.
Beautiful. Thank you, Margot.
Nice.
Ms. Joan, I see your hand.
Let's see, am I muted? Okay, so yesterday I connected with nature and I had a sweet experience. I was doing some weeding in my backyard and this big fuzzy black bumblebee came up and it seemed really pissed off at me. Like I was it felt like male energy to me. So I'm calling it a him. He seemed like he was protecting these plants and he was coming at me and I kept trying to move and I really felt this respect and connection with him at the same time protecting myself, but it was basically very sweet. It was very sweet just having this relationship, this experience with this one big fuzzy black bee. And that was it.
Nice.
Thank you. He could have been male if he wasn't a honeybee. If he wasn't a honeybee, he could have been male. Just saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But
And the black fuzzy ones are bumblebees, is that right?
I think so. I associate fuzzy and they're a little bigger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This had personality, this had character.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, that's cool. Thank you. And I appreciate your talk.
Megan has her hand up. Thank you, Joan.
So I just have a couple. I was having a pretty challenging work week and I was getting ready for work in the morning. I take the kids to school, then I come back and make breakfast and lunch and then get on the road. And I was kind of dreading the day and I looked out the window and I had this little old light. It's like a propane light. And there were two mourning doves on perched upon the light together. And then I was like, oh my God, I've never seen them together. And so I looked out the window and they were following each other around the yard and kind of chasing each other and flying. So that was like super sweet to see the two little birds following each other around. The analogy that they mate for life. And then for me, the poppies are beautiful, like driving all over the Bay Area right now and seeing all the poppies in bloom. It reminds me very much of my dad because he like loved poppies. So every house we've ever lived in, we've had poppies. So to just see them along the freeways and in all these people's yards is just really sweet, a reminder of nature and just the oneness.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Great. Thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Megan.
Robert?
So I just found the descriptions to be so inspiring in terms of the complexity and the creativity of nature, how these things have evolved over, millions and millions of years. And it's like you couldn't imagine, how wondrous it is. And for me, that's that instills a desire to protect, the natural world, which we are, of course, a part of. And I think that if people had more of this information, then it would, it would create that more of a sense of respect, and so I just find it really amazing. And like what you were saying about honey. I mean, I had heard that years ago that honey never goes bad, but I didn't realize it had been tested, in King Tut's tomb for thousands of years. I mean, that's just extraordinary, and so it makes me feel like, we should be walking around in constant astonishment at the world we live in, and to love and protect it at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm complete.
It's worth marveling at. Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Urban Sunshine, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Lovely talk, Gabriella. Just what I thought it would be, even though I wasn't sure, but a couple things actually, as Margot mentioned, your passion for nature is inspiring, and that tags on to what Robert was saying. It's like, I know that you have even though we don't talk about it very much, but it was your passion for nature caused me to invite you to speak, because I knew that you had that in you. And it's fascinating when we hear these stories and we don't know them really. And so looking at the one question about community, as soon as you said it, and I put it in the chat, but I want to say it out loud, that the way they communicate, I want to say one more thing about communication. Well, let me say it now. The waggle dance, oh my God, they communicate. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm ready to start a new line dance, called the waggle dance after the bees. We'll have to have a party, and create that. Not the wobble, but the waggle dance. And then lastly, I wanted to say that I thought of unconditional love, because that is their instinct. They're instinctually in the way they're built physically is, when they're pollinating or protecting or whatever it is, protecting, that when they sting, they die. But it's in service to the community, the way you said it. And to me, that is total dedication. That's total surrender. That's, standing up for it. That's the beloved community. I'll fight for you, is what that means. And so thank you for that. It's beautiful.
I got chills on that. Thank you.
Hey, thanks.
Dean.
Mhm.
Miss Alice. Thank you, Reverend Sunshine. Miss Alice.
Well, I'm a nature lover. I love nature. And I live in Mill Valley. I live at the base of Mount Tam.
Mhm.
So I've lived here since 1980, and I have hiked all over Mount Tam. In 5 minutes in nature, and I just feel like I turn into who I really am.
Mm.
I love the bees, and I heard, several years ago that they were in big trouble. So I plant flowers that the bees are drawn to. And my favorite, I have to say, is the bumblebee. Bumble is the right word for that bee. And I don't know if it's the same bumblebee that comes and visits me, but I often see, I think it's a he. I see him or her, whatever the case may be out there. But my one question, did I get to connect with nature this week? I try to connect every day with nature. But one of my favorite things is I often take an evening walk because it's safe to take an evening walk in Mill Valley. And I go to this one spot and I just stop and I listen to the crickets and they're singing and I start singing inside. And so I'm completely inspired. And I think that nature just demonstrates oneness. And so
Mhm.
everyone
Mhm.
nature. So I'm complete. And I just feel happy talking about nature. So thank you so much, Gabriella. Gabriella, that was so inspiring. I did not know that the bees were that old. That's incredible.
In our relationship with them and how they've been viewed
Yeah.
by so many people and from who don't live near each other.
So thank you. I'm complete.
Yeah, thank you, Alan.
Anyone else? We have a few more minutes. I do have a little thing I'd like to get confirmed, Gabriella. I don't know if you know this, or maybe Megan
Yeah.
or Joan, who have nursing, even Dorothy, have nursing backgrounds, but I suffered from seasonal allergies severely.
Mhm.
I'd have to spend almost all of the spring in Massachusetts, where it's damp and humid in the spring and the early summer, and I would suffer, especially when the grass got cut. It was just horrible. And I remember my grandmother telling my mother, give him some local honey, a little bit. And that is a natural, it would build up my immunity to the allergy to the pollen, because the pollen was from the local grasses and flowers that were making, that I was allergic to, but it was a slow vaccination, so to speak, a little piece that I could build up my immunity. And I didn't know if anybody else had heard of
Did
that.
it work?
It helped. It helped. Um, so my mother gave me honey and Benadryl. So, but I'm wondering if there was ancient medicine in the honey to help those that were allergic to the pollinating and pollen stuff. Joan?
Yeah, I heard about this from a coworker about 15 years ago, that local honey helped with the allergies. And I go to Trader Joe's on College Avenue, and they have local honey there if anybody wants some. So I
Oh.
have it every morning in my cup of coffee with milk.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we do use it in wound healing. So there's dressings that you put on people with the honey. So it's not only for pollen, it has a natural antibacterial property, but it's a specific kind of honey. So for wound healing, it's I'm gonna mispronounce the name, but it's generally from Australia. Macanuba honey, I believe it is. Yes, and there's like with everything, there's ratings of how much how good it is, the quality, like the strength. So yeah, there are a lot of uses for honey, and also natural cough suppressant is something as well.
Right.
Yeah, it can prevent infection. It's that effective.
Wow.
Mhm.
The Queen Mother has thought of everything for us, huh?
Yeah.
Speaking of Queen Mother, Reverend Sunshine, your hand is up, darling.
I know people at Canicle Farm, which is just right here in the Fruitvale district, and they grow medicinal plants on their farm, and do a lot of wonderful things and share it with the community. And so I was a donor in one of their fundraisers once, and they gave me a little pot of this salve, for lack of a better word, and it had a bunch of ingredients in it. I'm pretty sure something related to the bees as well. That was almost like a miracle salve. It was for burns. It's kind of like what you were saying, Megan, that it was like for burns and wounds like that. And you put it on their bites and stuff, and it would just like evaporate it like that. However, maybe you know the answer to this. I put it in, it's lasted a long, long time. I've had it for a while. I went to use some the other day and it was terribly sticky. It was just like, I don't know if it's decomposing or whatever, but anyway, I don't know. No preservatives probably in it, so.
I hear if you warm up crystallized honey, it returns back to its natural state. So, Reverend Sunshine, you also said something about dandelion in your chat.
She liked my prop.
Oh, your chart. Yeah. Yeah, saves a slide, right?
That's what I thought too.
You're so conservative. That's great.
Right.
Gives me an idea for
Yeah.
when I get to present.
Yeah.
We're almost at the magic minute. Anybody else have a closing thought or want to share anything special about Honey Sweetness community?
Paul, I think we should all live with transcendent purpose. I heard Gabriella say the bees live with transcendent purpose. Did you say that? Transcendent.
The bee embodies transcendent purpose and connection to the miraculous intelligence in creation despite external humbleness.
Wow.
I know, I love that. I did not write that. I copied it.
Well, I think I'm going to be seeing some bee pins on some stoles around the church.
Yeah.
That's transcendent. Say it again, Reverend Sunshine. Transcendent.
Purpose.
Purpose.
Wow. We have really worked the bee thing tonight, haven't we? Honey?
Yeah, I didn't even talk about the environmental side. I'll just say one more thing. The almond industry is huge in California. California produces about 80% of the world's almonds. That's how many almonds we're growing here. And they're expensive because of the water requirements. And the almond farmers rent the honeybees because that's an opportunity for a beekeeper to, make some more money than by just selling honey. And it's like $1 million industry, maybe higher, to rent the bees to come pollinate the almond trees. And there's a lot of them, and it's a lot of monocropping. It's just the almond tree for a gazillion of acres, except for some small organic almond farms. And that's what made the news recently about colony collapse disorder, and that's because of the pesticides, Roundup in particular. In colony collapse disorder is when like the foraging bees go out, but they don't come back. So that's their big threat is pesticides, and also there's a mite that lives on them. And when you have a monoculture, you don't have the diversity in your ecosystem to attract the natural predators that might eat the mite. And so things get out of whack, things get out of balance. So like the mite population that otherwise would be balanced by a more diverse ecosystem, if that gets out of hand, then that weights down the bees because they're like a parasite and they hurt their immune system. So the biggest threats to the honeybee in California are pesticides and the mites. And monoculture. We need diversity in our farming techniques. I just thought I'd share that because that made the news recently.
Wow.
Forever the environmentalist. I got to end with, detoxify the environment.
Hey.
Yay, yay, yay. And we'll pray for the honeybee, shall we? You know, I think that works too a little bit. And
Yeah.
that's a little bit of sweet spiritual thought is protecting the ones that work so hard for us. So, and that includes you, Gabriella. Again, thank you so much for your conversation tonight and educating us.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you,
And know
everybody.
that
for coming.
I'm still wrapped on the King Tut thing. There's hope for me yet. You know? 3,000 years from now, they'll say they found honey in Paul's kitchen cabinet. Okay, loved ones, I think it's time to share some information. Peter, when you're ready, we'll get started. And guess what? What? This Sunday, April 28th, Reverend Dr. Sunshine Michelle Coleman will be speaking on gentle cosmicness. Meditation starts at 10, followed by service at 10:30. Then on Wednesday, May 1st, at our first midweek oasis in May, join practitioner Maureen French for a deeper conversation on that topic of gentle cosmicness. Meditation is at 6:30 and service is at 7, and it's in Zoom. So you can check us out on oaklandcsl.org and click on the services link to get there. Join our 2024 daily community spiritual practice using the Abundance Book, 40-Day Prosperity Plan by John Randolph Price. Today we're on our 35th day of the program using the 5th affirmation in the book, and we're in the 3rd round of that. Following along daily in the order that the affirmations appear, we're getting the job done. April is Earth Month. We have celebrated Earth Day for the past 50 years on April 22nd by billions of people around the world. So join Centers for Spiritual Living for Earth Day celebrations. How can you do that? Go to visit oaklandcsl.org on the events page and click on the Earth Day image to learn more. And this is what you'll see. Recordings of some of these events that have already happened will be posted there soon. We honor Passover from April 22nd to April 30th. Each April, the past and present mingle during Passover, one of the most significant holidays on the Jewish calendar. Passover is a celebration that commemorates the Jewish people's escape from slavery in ancient Egypt. This Friday, April 26th, the Diversity Circle, in partnership with the Social Justice Ministry, will continue the virtual book discussion on Stained Glass Spirit by Dr. Tracy Brown. That's on this Friday at 7 o'clock, and it's on Zoom. Visit our website on the groups page for the link to that event. The last session of the Women's Spiritual Empowerment Group is on this Sunday, April 28th at 12:30, right after service. Please sign up on the events page if you're planning to come at oaklandcsl.org, or you can drop in because that's welcome also. Thrive East Bay and OCSL will host the Hold Everyone Up concert on Sunday, May 5th at 4 p.m., and that will be in our sanctuary. It features Melanie DeMore and the Wild Choir. Tickets can be purchased by visiting our website on the events page. There will also be assistance in the courtyard after Sunday service in purchasing tickets online. Please spread the word and tell your friends. And bring your friends. The People of African Descent New Thought Group is hosting Celebrating Our Soul 2024, Consciously Creating Change. The conference happens August 1st through August 4th at Unity Village in Kansas City, Missouri, and is an opportunity to come together to learn and share spiritual principles to help improve lives and our communities. Early registration has ended on April 15th, but visit their website at www.padntg.com. The Spirit Treasure Bookstore is celebrating National Poetry Month and Earth Awareness Month and has a 30% off table. For more information, please contact Linda Wyman at oaklandcsl.org. So let's just take a moment and look at all these happy faces of wonderful giving stewards in the different areas that they do around here. We're so grateful for them. And we encourage you to visit csl.org to see what is happening within our Centers for Spiritual Living. And that's our global organization. Please visit our website at oaklandcsl.org and sign up for our weekly newsletter, The Village News. Remember to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook for special updates and content you'll only find by liking and subscribing to Oakland Center. Please like us and subscribe to Oakland Center today. In this moment, we're going to move into an offering, joyous giving time. So we have a affirmation for you to follow along with as I read it. Just for a moment, think of those bees and how beneficial they are to us, and what we receive from them. That's like spirit. So we like to give back and encourage those bees to keep doing the work that we so enjoy. And that's what we do here at the Oakland Center. We like to give back to our center so we can continue to do great things for the world. So whatever that gift is that you give it in whatever form, which I'll explain in a minute, just consciously hold that in your heart and near your heart. Joyously I give with an attitude of abundance, knowing that as I give, I do receive. And I release that, and knowing that it's doing great work in our center and the world. How can you donate? On the website, on that donate button with all the hearts up there. If you click that, it'll move you to a page where you have different ways to donate. Click the donate button if you'd like to use the credit card. It has the location for Zelle. It has the text telephone number if you like to do it that way. It has our mailing address if you'd like to mail something. It also has a basket, and that signifies our wonderful movement in our Sunday service where we move and get up and put our offering in the basket. So those are several ways that you can financially support us at the center. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Our meditation was done by Gabriella, put us in the mood, connected us with Mother Gaia and the earth. Alice Knudsen opened us up with prayer, a beautiful practitioner and a beautiful opening prayer. We want to really thank Gabriella for a wonderful message. We'll be talking about bees for weeks, I'm sure, when we gather together. I want to thank Reverend Dr. Sunshine Michelle Coleman for being here tonight and shepherding us and giving us this platform where we can have refreshment in between Sundays and refresh ourselves on the spiritual message between Sundays. The Zoom team, they are the busy bees doing the communal and spiritual work necessary to make me look good and sound good. It ain't easy. So let's hear it for those busy bees. Peter up in Portland, Alice Knudsen and Alice Herndon over by Lake Meriden and Marin. And we want to thank our administrator, Steve Carter, for the work that he does to put this all together that we can make it all happen. So thanks, Steve. Right now, we're going to move into our closing prayer. And Gabriella has asked practitioner Margot Tavitt to deliver the closing prayer. If there's nothing else, Margot, I think you're on.
Okay, it's so wonderful to pray when you're buzzing with inspiration. So I invite everyone to bring themselves back to their own places of buzziness and inspiration, because gosh, isn't it wonderful to just talk about life You know, life is the perfect interchangeable word for oneness. Everything's included, and isn't it wonderful beyond words to bring ourselves into nature? Because I don't think anybody here has not found the God in themselves and the God in the biggest sense to some experience in nature. So we're just really lucky and blessed to have Gabriella as a lover of the specific miracles of nature. Of course, God would say all miracles are just normal, but it's pretty amazing to have a metaphor for infinite spiritual energies and transformative purpose, because that, if that is God in the bee, it's the God in us. And so I'm just knowing we are pollinators too, and that we choose to pollinate love. We choose to pollinate growth and development in the sparkle of life in ourselves and in others, in our community, in Oakland and in the world, bringing peace. I know it is our nature. I know we know how to pollinate it, even when we don't even know we are doing it. And so I just filled with gratitude and blessings for the whole evening. I thank you, Gabrielle, for activating the pollinators in us, empowering them, and I turn it over to life itself, to the law, to that co-creative, creating part that has heard it all, knows our hearts, knows our great desire to contribute to life. And if you feel filled also, let's all just end with our favorite declaration. And so it is.
And so it is.